SAS data collection home, moving beyond data collection and connecting to the why. Dr. Georgia McKown will be presenting today. She's our Program Manager for Effective Data Collection and Professional Learning. So, Georgia, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll mute and I can navigate the slides for you.
Thanks, Maya. I'm really excited to see that you all are excited about SAS because that's what I'm going to talk about today. We haven't talked about SAS in a little while with Cohort 1, so I'm excited to get into it. I guess we'll go to the next slide, Maya, so I can talk about the objectives. So after we get through this session today, you'll be able to explain the significance of SAS data and how it helps create school-wide and classroom behavior goals. You'll be able to name some strategies for collecting data and ensuring participation from all school staff members. And then you'll be able to describe how to monitor SAS data collections in the partner schools. And this is something we're really, really excited about. If you remember last time around, you had to make a direct request of me to get your completion progress. And so now you're going to be able to get that yourself. I moved it to the end because I know as a former teacher that as soon as I give you access to that, you're not going to be listening to anything that I say. So that's your treat at the end is I'll teach you how to get to the data tracking and you can see it for yourself. All right, so let's get into the significance of SAS. And as a reminder, SAS stands for Self-Assessment Survey. I hate it when I see acronyms everywhere and I don't know what they stand for. So the Self-Assessment Survey is a survey that we use at the beginning of your partnership and then every year to gauge staff perception of the effectiveness of behavior support systems and the priority level for improving those same systems. So to what extent are they in place and what's the priority level for improving that particular system? It's fully anonymous. Our goal is 100% participation for all school staff. That's not just your certified staff. That's not just your instructional staff. That's everyone who works in your building. The goal is 100%. I'm sure you'll remember from the last time we administered it that our threshold to continue partnership was 80%, but really, really, we want to strive for 100%. The window for completing it this time around is January 2nd through February 13th, so you still have plenty of time. And we do this so that your team can identify priorities and action plan. Every single behavior system in your school cannot be a priority. If everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. So this gives you an opportunity and a framework for seeing, okay, what do our staff think is really important and in place? And juxtapose that with some of your other data sources to help you make decisions about where to head next. You'll also see that the link for accessing the survey is here. We've got it in plenty of other places too, but it's hosted via our website through this link. Okay, so the full self-assessment survey actually has 4 sections. You and your schools only complete 2 right now because we are focused on tier 1. So that would be your school-wide systems. That would be the ones that include all students, all staff in all locations. And then your tier 1 classroom systems. So those are the instructional settings where your instructional staff are working directly with students to provide instruction. So those are the only 2 systems that they fill out for SAS. So if you hear anyone complaining about the length of the self-assessment survey, you can tell them to be grateful that they're only going to be completing half of the sections this time around. Okay, so as a reminder, when you complete the self-assessment survey, for each item that comes up or each practice that appears, there's 2 indicators. The first one is the current status. So that's the extent to which something is currently being implemented. So not in place, partially in place, or fully in place. And then they also indicate their priority for improvement. So that would be high need for improvement. So we need to fix this immediately, or we need to address this right away. Medium, so we should plan to improve this in the future, or low. There's really no perceived need for improvement for this particular practice. Now, why do we collect these data? We don't collect them just to have them in our really beautiful database, although that is a fun part for Karen and I. The reason we collect these data is to help you identify areas of strength and things that are going well that you want to continue to support and prioritize, and opportunities for growth. So places where you might look at the data and say, this actually went down year over year. I wonder why our staff is perceiving that. Or the priority for improvement on this item is much higher than it was last year when we collected these data. I wonder why. So we really want to help you tease out some of those patterns in the data so that you can use them to help make decisions. Just, I heard the phrase admiring the problem at one of our DBC days, and I think it's really helpful. That is not what these data are for. These data are to help you identify what's going well that we want to keep doing and what should we focus on next? Because we can't focus on everything. That's too much. We're really only in our first year of full implementation. All of these are not going to be fully in place at this point. Where can we invest our time and energy to have the most impact with our students? So what you do here is you review these results and processes every single year. So from now on, you'll do it at around this time of the year, this January, February time slot, this mid-year. And this is really helpful because you have other data points at this point that can help inform your decision making as well, right? You did your practices inventory in the fall, so that was a data point from most of your staff. And then you'll have your self-assessment data. You have about half a school year of student behavior data right now that you can use to also inform the decisions that you're making. You may have other staff input surveys or tools that you've used throughout the year to get feedback at staff meetings or things like that. So this is just one of many data points that you're using to help guide your decision making. And it also is involving diverse stakeholders here. So these are folks who maybe don't get to participate in all of your other data sources, right? Like non-instructional staff here are also participating. So they're giving you information that you might not be capturing in some of those other tools. So it's meant to be used in tandem with all these other pieces. And the goal here is maximizing the benefit of utilizing this survey. So your school team's going to look at these data, but you might also share them with your school staff. We have other people looking at this and providing input on what they're seeing and the patterns that are going on so that you're really making the juice worth the squeeze. We know that your school staff have a million tasks coming into their inbox every single day. And so we want to help you make sure that this is worth their time, both to you and they perceive it as worth their time as well. All right. So the next objective here is to think about data collection strategies. How do we make sure that everyone in our building fills this out? So here's where we're going to begin is you're going to orient your staff to the self-assessment. You're not just going to email them out a link that they're going to think is spam or that's going to get them on the IT watch list, right? We're not just going to cold call them or send it out. We want to make sure that you're providing an initial overview to your staff. So we have resources for you. I'll show them to you at the end of the presentation where we've prepared a slideshow and a video and some other things you can share with your staff to remind them about what this is and why they're doing it. You could do this as part of a regularly scheduled staff meeting. It doesn't have to be a long, intensive thing. It's just a reminder of the partnership with Basque, why we ask you to fill this out, why it's important to you, how your team's going to use the data, really orienting them and helping them understand what it's for. This is also really, really important because there are almost certainly staff members in your building right now who did not work there the last time you administered this survey, right? There's a little bit of churn in every building. And so there are folks, we can't count on the fact that everyone's already going to know. Then you need to, oh, take me back. That was only my first bullet, Maya. I got a long way to go. Next, you're going to
My
facilitate
finger
time and
slipped.
space.
Sorry.
You're totally fine. I was teasing. You need to facilitate time and space to complete the survey. So think about when you could help folks carve out the time in a unified way, right? So maybe you give them staff meeting time to fill it out. Maybe you give them an unencumbered planning time and say, you know, you don't have any obligations during this planning time or during this typical duty period. Please make time to fill out the survey during that time. You might also consider setting up computers for personnel in your building who don't typically have an issued device, right? So there might be folks in your building who don't have an assigned device from the school, or maybe they're not as familiar with how to use the technology. And so you set up a time and space where you can support them and give them time to complete it and the technology support to do it as well. And then finally, you need some tracking and follow-up. So you might think of a system to verify completion of the anonymous survey. We'll have an opportunity in a minute where folks will share in the chat some things that have worked for them. You're also likely going to have to send reminders, right? This is not top of mind for most of the people in your building, especially if they're not on the Basque team. And so you're probably going to have to remind them multiple times to go back and complete that. And then finally, incentives. We've seen folks in the past offer some type of raffle, offer like a jeans pass or, leave when the bell rings pass. There's some of those other types of ways that you can acknowledge folks who have completed the survey. Now, reminder, the survey itself is anonymous, so that we don't collect anybody's name when they complete it, but we've had folks say, okay, fill out this Google form with a screenshot of the completion screen and your name, and you'll be entered into the drawing or something like that. So there's opportunities for you to set that up, but we are not collecting names on our end because we want people to feel comfortable sharing their true experience. All right, so in the chat, because almost all of you have been around for SAS data completion or data collection before, can you tell me what strategies you've used to promote SAS completion in the past? Our staff, if you know of any examples, you're also welcome to throw it in the chat. Tell me about some stuff that you've done that worked, or maybe that didn't work. Protect us from the pitfalls. Yes, Jennifer, the Goose Pass. I just learned about that acronym, the Get Out of School Early. I learned about that acronym recently, and I think it's so good. Maya said using a Google form with an embedded link to send out to the staff. That's super helpful so that they don't have to go hunting for the link to complete it. Um, Jeffrey says they do it during the PLC. A little more intimate. It's a small group. The orientation slides help better than an email. Yeah, Jeffrey, we found that to be true. That's why we produce some of the video and like some of those other tools. Use the grade level planning. Brilliant. Thanks, Renee. Yeah, Karen, have everybody do it at a staff meeting. Oh, Crystal did it as an exit ticket. I love that. Sent a lot of reminders, Jamie. Yep. Had a Google sign up. Ooh, wants to work on an incentive for completion. Well, see what you can do. If you can offer a goose pass, those seem pretty popular. Um, oh, bragging rights for being the first school in a district to reach completion. That's actually great. A little positive attention for people doing what you want them to do. Um, a raffle to get free lunch. What a treat. You could DoorDash something. What a deal. Yeah, Jamie used the monthly staff meeting. That makes good sense to me. Thanks for sharing those examples. Yeah, lots of folks doing this during the staff meeting. Um, I want to go look on our back end and see what the average completion time is. I'm going to do that after we have this call so we can add that to some of our guidance documents so that you know approximately how much time people are spending on it. I think that could be helpful to you all as you're planning. Crystal, I also love the Goose Pass acronym, and you could put a goose on the pass, which would be so cute. You could even call it a silly goose if you wanted to. What a treat. Oh, Sarah's already working on it. If you need a goose pass, talk to Sarah. All right, Maya, will you take me to the next slide? Thank you so much. So now I'm going to tell you about the part that technically I'm very excited about, which is the ability for you to monitor SAS completion. And this is so cool. Karen and I have worked with a consultant to help build this out for you because it's very neat. All right, take me to the next slide. So you are going to be able to monitor your staff SAS completion rate in real time. You will be able to log in, and this is a sneak preview. I'll take you through the directions in a minute. But this is what you will be able to see. So you'll be able to filter by the school you want to look at. In your case, you can only see one school if you are on a school team, but your DBC is able to see all the schools they support. Then you'll pick the school year that you're interested in. Be careful not to pick last year because it will tell you last year's completion rate. And then you'll click that blue button that says View. And then as you scroll down, it'll tell you the number of staff you've reported or your DBC collected, the number of completed survey entries we have right now, and then a conversion to a rate for you. And this is so, so helpful because you can check this whenever you need to see where you stand instead of having to wait for an email from me or your DBC or whoever. All right, so here's how you get to that screen that I just showed you. And this is an example from Liberty Elementary's folder, but it works for any school. So you'll go to your school's Google Drive folder, and then you will go into another folder that's called Evaluation of MTSS-B Tier 1. We probably will not have time to fully practice this together, but as a reminder, you'll have this recording and you'll also have the slides from today to go back and look at whenever you need to. So you'll go to your school folder, the evaluation, and then there's two things in there. The first one has a yellow icon indicating that it's a Google slide, right? And that is the directions with the screenshots of exactly what to click on, because we know that sometimes once you get in there, it can be a little confusing. So the directions are in there of exactly what to click on. You could print this out if you want to, or you can just pull it up and look at it as you go. And then the second one is a Word document. When you open that, it has the directions written out in words with some like embedded linked screenshots, but it also has the username and password that you'll need to use to log into the platform. Everyone on your school team is going to be using the same username and password. We do not generate a separate one because you don't have access to edit anything in here. All you can do is look at the report. So there's no need for individuals to have separate usernames and passwords. All right, so logging in and viewing, you'll click on your directions that are in your Google Drive folder as a Word doc. You'll log into the link right here, behavioralliance.org/school-login. It's listed for you on the directions. Then, as you get in there and you type in your username and password, you'll select Self-Assessment Report. It's one of the tabs up at the top. And then you'll select the school year from the dropdown and press View. And that's where you'll be able to see the completion rate. Once you're done collecting data, this will be the exact same place where you view the results. But we have the results turned off right now because you don't have a complete data set, so it's not really helpful to look at it. So you'll be able to scroll right past where your completion rates are once the survey is closed and see the results. All right, so again, this document has some additional images and some arrows to show you exactly where to click if you're feeling like it's not very intuitive for you. So you'll be able to click Self-Assessment Report, the school year from the dropdown, and then press View, and this will show you your completion rates. And then there it is. I put it in that nice little citrus colored rectangle for you. So that's where the completion rate is. Don't get confused and think that the completed number is the same thing as completion rate. We're using completion rate to track where you stand. All right, so this handout is also in your folder. This one has the Lawrence County icon up at the top, but yours won't. And this includes some of those things that I made reference to and Jeffrey also made reference to for the self-assessment overview. So as you're providing details to your staff and orienting them to this tool, there's a slideshow that's linked here for you that you can pull up and just use in your staff meeting to run through what the tool is. There's a video recording, so if you prefer not to provide the background, I think that recording is actually of me providing the background. So if you want to use that, you are welcome to do that. And then there's also a self-paced Canvas module. So if you need more information or maybe an administrator in your building wants additional background on the self-assessment survey, there's a very, very short Canvas module that's there as well. And then down at the bottom in that orange oval, that is the live link to complete the survey. There's also a QR code there to complete the survey. So if you'd rather scan it yourself and access it on a mobile device, you're welcome to do that. I personally prefer completing this on a computer. Um, so that would be my recommendation to you, but it is formatted to be accessible on a mobile device as well. So if folks want to complete it on an iPad or a phone or a tablet, they're welcome to do that. And then again, the completion details are in your evaluation folder. They are not, or the completion rate details, I'm sorry, are there. Another thing that I just want to highlight here that I did not build into this slideshow is when you click the link to access the survey, um, the first thing that pops up is a place where you can enter your survey code to resume an existing survey. So if you don't have time to finish your survey, you can copy the survey ID or whatever and paste it somewhere else on your computer, and then you can go back in and enter that value. If you are starting a new entry, you just have to scroll down a little bit and click where it says Start New Entry. So I just want it, some people open it, they're like, oh, I don't have a code. You just have to scroll down a little bit to start a new survey response instead of resuming an existing one. All right, what questions do you have for me?
Feel free to pop any questions in the chat, or you can unmute and ask Georgia any questions about SAS collection, completion rate, access. I hope that's super helpful for you. Thank you, Georgia, for that presentation. And thank you, Georgia and Karen, for working so hard to make this a seamless and easy process for our schools and school teams. We really appreciate you.
Happy